Hey everyone, what's going on? This is a follow-up to the previous video that I put out, and in this video I talked a lot about the number 424 and how it's linked up to Donald Trump and the Hebrew Messiah, and also this narrative with Batman and how it stems back to the 2012 Batman theater shooting. That's why we have Alex Jones in the media right now, Alex Jones and Sandy Hook, because in that Batman movie, they changed the map that used to say South Hinkley to say Sandy Hook. Then he puts his hand on it. And then four months and 24 days later, we got the Sandy Hook shooting. Of course, we also had Hurricane Sandy in New York that year, right around the same time that the San Francisco Giants had won the World Series. And the San Francisco Giants were originally called the New York Gothams, reminding us of Batman. I talked about that movie Rise of the Guardians, where the main character is Jack Frost, who has a weapon that is a staff with a hook on it, and the other main guy, good guy, is the Sandman, who they call Sandy Hook, right before Sandy Hook. And I talked about that's why we just got the recent death of Olivia Newton-John, who's probably most famous for being Sandy in the Grease film, right? And there's a big lightning theme with that as well. Grease lightning. And think about the same day that Alex Jones got ordered to pay money to the Sandy Hook victims, we got that lightning that struck near the White House. And that was linked up to Pope Francis, because in 2013, which was, once again, right after the Batman shooting and right after Sandy Hook, but on 2/11/2013, lightning struck the dome on the St. Peter's Basilica twice. And that was the same day that Pope Benedict announced that he was resigning, which would allow Pope Francis to become the Pope. And what's so interesting about this date, 2/11, that's also Alex Jones' birthday. And if you go 424 days after Sandy Hook, it takes you to Alex Jones' birthday. And once again, the Batman shooting, 4 months, 24 days before Sandy Hook, and a whole lot more. And so once again, if watch this video, there's a lot of information, and this video will probably be a lot smoother for you to understand if you watch this previous video. And I put a lot of pictures and everything else in there, so hopefully you can understand it better. But this number 424, we've discovered, is really, really important to Donald Trump. And if you go back to 2019, we were following the date August 11th a whole lot, because August 11th was the second day of Tisha B'Av. And Tisha B'Av is the Jewish festival or Jewish Remembrance Day that's where they remember the destruction of the two temples in history. And they both fell on the 9th day of the 11th month on the Hebrew civil calendar. Of course, the two temples fell on that same day in history. Think about the two towers that fell and a whole lot more. 9/11. But August 11th was when Tisha B'Av was. And that day is really interesting because you got Donald Trump, too, right? We were talking about this day in relation to the possible construction of the third temple that is very important, and that's when the Messiah will return, and so on. And this was during the time that Donald Trump was the president, and Donald Trump had also declared Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Donald Trump was also, they put him on an Israeli coin with King Cyrus. And Donald Trump had also went to visit the Western Wall on 5/22/2017, the same year he became the president. And what's so interesting about this date is that if you go from this date to August 11th, 2019, it just so happens to be 811 days later. And if you go from Donald Trump's birthday to the day August 11th, 2019, and you go 424 days after his birthday, so Donald Trump's birthday in 2018, you go 424 days later, it takes you to August 11th of 2019. And that's interesting because in 2018, there was this interview, or these people went to Mar-a-Lago, right? So that's why Mar-a-Lago is really big in the news. Mar-a-Lago, because Donald Trump actually, this was where he moved to live in 2019, but before that, he would just have some meetings and so on at Mar-a-Lago. And this is really big because in 2018, he had like a donor's dinner there on April 30th of 2018, and somebody brought in a camera on a phone or whatever, and they recorded the conversations and so on. And you can hear these two Ukrainian guys telling Donald Trump that his name in Hebrew gematria, if you write out his name in the Hebrew letters, it equals 424. And they tell him that that is a number of the Messiah. And they go on to tell him that he's like the savior of Ukraine. He's like the Messiah of Ukraine. And just think about Ukraine and so on with Russia in the news right now. And that's interesting because if you go from August 11th, 2018, and you go 424 days later, it just so happens to take you to Vladimir Putin's birthday. So he's the savior of Ukraine. His name in Hebrew gematria equals 424. Also, when Donald Trump went to the Western Wall, he just so happened to touch it at 4:24 p.m. Jerusalem time. So 4:24. And also, if you write out Donald Trump in all capital letters, Donald Trump, it just so happens to equal 424. And this is important. This cipher right here, the Francis Bacon cipher, is important to capital letters. They play an importance. And think about the Capitol insurrection and Donald Trump and his impeachment, and think about how his first impeachment involved Ukraine, right? So it's very interesting. And there's a whole bunch of other interesting connections with this number 424, such as if you write out Kamala Harris, her name equals 424. And I just found out, I just saw that Kobe Bryant's his final birthday was 424 days before Kamala Harris's birthday, too. But if you go from 424 days after Kamala Harris's birthday, it takes you to Pope Francis's birthday, right? And think about how Pope Francis became the Pope in the year following the Batman shooting. The Batman shooting in 2012, and then Pope Francis became the Pope in 2013. And this year, Tisha B'Av fell on August 6th, which is a big number important to Batman. Maybe I'll leave a little thing, but, you know, Aurora, Colorado's 86. James Egan Holmes, the Batman supposed shooter at the theater, was 86, and a whole bunch more. But if you go from Pope Francis's anniversary of being Pope to August 6th, it just so happens to be 4 months and 24 days. And I further know that this Batman narrative is linked into this because if you go from, let's see here, if you go from the day that Donald Trump touched the Western Wall and you go 424 days later, it takes you to July 20th, 2018, which is the anniversary of the Batman shooting, right? It's also the anniversary of the moon landing. And remember, right after the Batman shooting in 2012, we got the death of Neil Armstrong, the first guy to walk on the moon. And he just so happened to die on Sean Connery's birthday. And Sean Connery was known for playing James Bond. And in the Batman film, just before the shooting happened, there was a preview of the James Bond film called Skyfall. And it showed the word Aurora in the preview on a building in China called the Aurora Plaza. And then, you know, that night at the midnight showing, James Holmes supposedly shot up Aurora, Colorado. But so the James Bond thing was even linked up to that. And Sean Connery's birthday and the day that Neil Armstrong died in history is also important to the moon because there was this thing called the Great Moon Hoax, I think of 1835. And it was a hoax they put in the newspaper about bat-like people who lived on the moon, right? Batman, bat-like people who lived on the moon. So you know it's all interrelated. We even just recently even had the story about Queen Elizabeth's stunt double. Let me see where did I put that in here? Queen Elizabeth's stunt double, or stunt man, and how he was jailed for attacking his girlfriend. That was a story yesterday. But what's interesting, this guy is actually famous for dressing up like Queen Elizabeth in a skit that involved Daniel Craig, who was James Bond, right? And they did a James Bond skit at the 2012 Olympics that opened 7 days after the Batman shooting. What are the odds that this story would be in the news? Queen Elizabeth's stunt double. But what are the odds that this guy's name's Gary Connery, of all names, right? Gary Connery. It's like, give me a break. And he does the whole thing with James Bond. Then you got Sean Connery, who's important. This was right after the Batman shooting in 2012. I mean, you just can't even make it up. And maybe I'll come back to this post. There's a whole bunch of stuff. There's a lot of lightning symbolism that I've noticed. And after Apollo 11 landed on the moon, the next one was Apollo 12. And before taking off, Apollo 12 actually got struck by lightning 2 times. And that was on Prince Charles's birthday. Think about Prince Charles, Queen Elizabeth, and so on. So there's definitely some interesting things there. And also, back in July, on the anniversary of the Batman shooting and the moon landing, we got a story about how lightning struck and killed a soldier, right? So once again, lightning, definitely important. And back in June, there was even, where did I put it? Back in June, there's even a story about how the iconic cover for Batman The Dark Knight Returns was sold or whatever. And what are the odds that it's Batman with this lightning bolts on the cover, you know? So it's definitely something important. You also got the new Flash movie coming out that someone in the comments pointed out to me here, but there's the new Flash movie, and think about the Flash who has the lightning bolt on his outfit or whatever, and the Flash movie is going to involve a lot to do with Batman and Michael Keaton's Batman, and you just had the stuntman that for Michael Keaton's Batman die on August 6th, 8/6, but the person also pointed out the Gematria report here, but they also pointed out that that lightning that struck near the White House was on the Thursday, and Thursday is named after Thor, and Thor is associated with lightning and thunder as well. And then this is the Flash movie's DC comics, and think about Washington, D.C., that had the lightning that struck near it. And also remember, on 4/24 of 2011, lightning also struck near the White House, and that was big. And that was on Easter Sunday, and so on. And right after that person told me that, I went to CNN, and there's a story about the person who is playing the Flash in the new upcoming movie, Ezra Miller, is seeking treatment for their mental health and so on, right? It's like, what are the odds? Ezra Miller. And that same day, literally, I was telling my coworkers about all this lightning symbolism, and Caitlin was wearing a necklace with lightning bolts on it. And then Dana told me about this new tattoo that she had got not that long ago with a lightning bolt on her leg. And I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. Then I saw the oven at work had a lightning bolt next to the power symbol. Like most of the time it's an omega symbol, right? Why is it a lightning bolt on both of these ovens? And it says power, and then Dana, who had the tattoo on her leg, is wearing a shirt that says powers on the back. So it makes me think there's something important to power outages, you know? Lightning and power outages, and then you got the Dark Knight and the Super Bowl. After, you know, the Ravens and the power outage at the Super Bowl, which maybe I'll talk about that in a little bit here, but that was right after the Batman shooting. And in that Batman movie, they have the kicker whose name is Ravenstall, who kicks the ball off before number 86, Hines Ward, returns it, and the stadium collapses because Bane, who equals 86, collapsed the stadium. But anyway, let's stick on this 424 number. So it all stems back to what, like I said, Donald Trump touching the Western Wall. And wouldn't you know, then all of a sudden we got a story about how there was 5 Americans injured in Jerusalem at a shooting attack, and it was next to the Western Wall, of all places, right? And it was on August 13th, which was the day I was watching for with the Iowa State Fair this year, and nothing happened at the Iowa State Fair, but what are the odds there's an attack at the Western Wall on this day that I'm paying attention to that connects back to Donald Trump saying he was Batman in a helicopter at the Iowa State Fair? But and then, you know, what are the odds that this Lev Parnas guy, the guy who told Donald Trump that his name equaled 424 in the Hebrew Gematria, and that he was like the Messiah or the savior of Ukraine, you know, what are the odds that leaked footage would be from the Mar-a-Lago at a donations dinner? Now we got Mar-a-Lago being raided, and We also had Rudy Giuliani in the news, how he's a target and so on. And that's interesting because Rudy Giuliani was actually like one of the associate, or this Lev Parnas guy was one of Rudy Giuliani's associates. And so we got him in the news. And I looked up Lev Parnas again, and this guy just so happened to be sentenced to jail over the stuff with Donald Trump. And he got sentenced to jail on June 29th, 2022. And his birthday's February 6th. And wouldn't you know, that means he got sentenced, or he went to jail 4 months and 24 days after his birthday. 424. This big number he's talking about with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Then Mar-a-Lago's in the news right after this guy goes to jail, whenever gets sentenced. I mean, you just can't even make it up. I'm trying to see what else I put in here. I mean, it's just oh, I went and looked up Mar-a-Lago, right? And of course, it talked about how it was ran by Ivana Trump for a long time, and Ivana, she just died 4 months, 24 days after her birthday. But Mar-a-Lago was actually created by this lady, Marjorie Merriweather Post. Marjorie Merriweather Post. And that's interesting because her name equals 424 in the Francis Bacon ciphers. Once again, what are the odds? Mar-a-Lago, created by this lady whose name equals 424. This original recording where they talked about Donald Trump and the number 424. And then this guy gets sentenced 4 months and 24 days after his birthday. We got Rudy Giuliani in the news as well. It all stems back to Ukraine because that Lev Parnas guy is a Ukrainian guy. And it was linked up to Donald Trump's impeachment that happened on 12/18 of, was it that same year that Tisha B'Av happened, right? It was the same year, 12/18. And that's also interesting because if you go from Kamala Harris's birthday, and remember her name in all capital letters equals 424 as well. If you go a span of 424 days, it takes you to Pope Francis's birthday. But if you go just 424 days, it takes you to 12/18. And that is the day that Donald Trump was impeached over Ukraine, which is interesting. And that's also the day that Joe Biden's wife, Nelia Biden, died. And if you write out Nelia Biden, her name equals 424. And I discovered this on August 1st when I was researching more about Jill Biden and Joe Biden's wife and so on. And then we just got Jill Biden, who has COVID. But what's interesting is that I was looking into this on August 1st. And if you go from Jill Biden's birthday and you go forward 424 days, it takes you to August 1st. So I was literally looking into Jill Biden and Nelia Biden 424 days after Jill Biden's birthday. And then she ends up getting COVID now. It's just mind-blowing. 2 months, 13 days after her birthday. 8 months, 27 days after Joe Biden's birthday, which is interesting because Nelia Biden and Joe got married on August 27th, like 8/27. And her name equals 213, right? So 213, 827. I pointed out with Kamala Harris. I've had synchronicity today, too, showing me this date, 12/18, with Patrick Swayze and Chris Farley. And Chris Farley died on this day. And it was also involved Brad Pitt, and Brad Pitt's birthday is 12/18. So I think there's something important to that. And 12/18, and now that I'm thinking about it, 12/18 was also the day that, oh man, there was something important to Kobe Bryant on that day. Kobe Bryant's, I gotta look that up really quick. Kobe Bryant's jersey was retired on that day or something like that. In 2018? Let's see here. Maybe it's 2017. Let's go to 2017. I'm sorry. I know there was something to do with Kobe Bryant's jersey on that day. Let's type it out really quick. Kobe Bryant jersey. Yeah, Kobe Bryant's jersey retirement was on that day in 2017. 12/18, the day after Pope Francis's birthday. Interesting. And you know what? In regards to 424, and I'm talking about how Kobe Bryant is really important. So for years, I've talked about Kobe Bryant and the number 34. And how Kobe turned 34 years old, 34 days after the Batman shooting, right, in 2012. But Kobe Bryant in 2012 also got his nose broke at the NBA All Star game. And his nose just so happened to get broke 4 months and 24 days before the Batman shooting. And then on Shaquille O'Neal's birthday, Kobe Bryant wore this black mask, and they call him. They said he looked like a crime fighter in a lot of these articles, and a lot of the articles even brought up Batman. Right? Well, maybe we'll see Kobe in a full Batman mask next, and so on. And it's just interesting. That was Shaquille O'Neal's birthday that year. Remember, Shaquille O'Neal wore the number 34, and him and Kobe couldn't play together. And remember, after the Batman shooting, like I said, Kobe turned 34 years old 34 days later. But then later that season was the season that Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles just before the Boston Marathon bombing. And remember, one of the brothers was named Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, however you say it, but a lot of the media was pronouncing it as Joker at the time, reminding us of Batman. Then you also have Jack Nicholson, who is the Joker, who is a humongous Lakers fan. And Kobe scored 34 points in that game where he tore his Achilles. And he got the Lakers their 43rd win, the reflection of 34. And he came back 34 weeks later. And he announced his retirement with that poem called Dear Basketball. And that Dear Basketball won an Oscar on the date 3-4. And just before he came out with Dear Basketball, the Lakers lost by 34 points to the Golden State Warriors, and that was the team that Kobe tore his Achilles against. He also announced his retirement a span of 34 days after the anniversary of Philadelphia. Of course, he's a Philadelphia native. And then he would later, remember Dwight Howard was on the team when Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles, and Dwight Howard was supposed to be the all-star and so on. Dwight Howard also Superman, right? Think about that. Superman, Batman. But Dwight Howard turned 34 years old just before Kobe Bryant died. Something I talked about because Dwight Howard also re-signed with the Lakers on Kobe Bryant's 41st birthday that year. And of course, then Kobe Bryant equals 41. He died in a helicopter that crashed after 41 minutes. The pilot's name equaled 41. He was age 41. 41 days after the Pope's birthday, they said he went to Catholic Mass before he got the helicopter and so on. His final game, they took him out with 4.1 seconds left. His 81-point game, the Lakers scored 122 total points, meaning that the rest of the team scored 41 points. Even in this game here, where Kobe wore the black mask, the Batman or whatever, the crime fighter mask, the Lakers were losing, so Kobe decided to take it off after halftime, but the Lakers had 41 points at halftime, and then he switched his mask or whatever. But I knew Dwight Howard was going to be important to that and how he was going to turn 34 years old that year. And even the year before, I even predicted that LeBron James was going to get injured, and LeBron James did get injured. And I talked about how it was connected to Kobe Bryant and the number 34. And on the Lakers' 34th game that season, I think it was on Christmas Day, LeBron James got injured against the Golden State Warriors, the team that Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles against. And then he turned 34 years old like 5 days later, and the Lakers played the Sacramento Kings. Think about King James. Think about LeBron King James playing the Sacramento Kings. And there's a whole lot more to that. That was the team that DeMarcus Cousins had came from. And DeMarcus Cousins tore his Achilles on January 26, exactly 2 years to the day before Kobe Bryant dies in a helicopter crash. Of course, New Orleans equals 126, and so does Dwight Howard's name. And I can't even remember. Kobe tore his Achilles like 126 days after Dwight Howard's birthday. The same year Kobe tore his Achilles, Jerry Buss died 1 month and 26 days before Kobe tore his Achilles. Then, right after Dwight Howard turns 34 years old, Jerry Buss's wife, Jeannie Buss, ends up dying, and then Kobe ends up dying in a helicopter crash just after that. So Dwight Howard, a humongous curse, Chris Paul even was really big in that whole trade, right, with Dwight Howard, Chris Paul, remember all that stuff? And Chris Paul was born on the 126th day of the year, and so on, just so many 126s. Even Gianna Bryant, I think he was 126. Could be wrong on that, but she was 13. 13th prime number is 41. LA's 13. 13th prime number 41. It's Kobe Bryant, just stupidly synced up to the number 41. But also, like I've said, for years I've been pointing out this number 34 with Kobe, Shaq number 34, and so on. Kobe ends up dying on the third month and fourth day of the NBA season in 2019-2020. And that was right after LeBron James had surpassed his record in Philadelphia, making him go from third to fourth on the all-time scoring list, right after Dwight Howard turns 34 years old. And if you watched the previous video, I was talking about all this in relation to the new Batman movie that came out on the date 3/4. And the Batman shooter James Holmes is currently 34 years old. So it's really interesting that they would bring a story up with Kobe Bryant in his helicopter. And it links back to this symbolism with Donald Trump saying he was Batman in a helicopter in 2015. The same year that we had the train wreck shooting and then we had the movie. There was the shooting at the movie Trainwreck, and LeBron James was also in that movie. And that was linked up to Pope Francis as well. Of course, Francis equals 34 in Gematria. And I'm just trying to think here. I feel like in that Batman movie, at the very end of The Dark Knight Rises, he's even flying a helicopter, isn't he? Now I'm thinking about it. I'll have to go back and look at that. I feel like he has like a bomb or something he's trying to drop in the ocean, and he's flying the Bat helicopter. So that might be very significant to what I'm talking about here, but the film Trainwreck was also important because remember earlier in that year in 2015 we had that Philadelphia train wreck that was linked up to the Pope Francis's visit to the United States on his 923rd day as Pope, and then he went to the White House on 9/23, and that CNN and all the major media articles showed how he got on the White House lawn at 9:23 in the morning. And of course, the movie Trainwreck starts when Amy Schumer's character is 9 years old. The rest of the movie takes place 23 years later. If you write out LeBron James, his name equals 923. He was in that film. But earlier this year, on the date 3/4, the same day that the Batman movie came out, we got the news that the train operator of the 2015 Philadelphia train wreck, Brandon Bostian, was found not guilty on his charges for that train wreck. Remember, that train wreck happened at 9:23, and it was linked up to Pope Francis's visit. And this was also when Donald Trump was running for president, and all the media was calling him a train wreck. I don't know if you remember that, but the media kept referring to Donald Trump as a train wreck, and then all of a sudden we get this Batman stuff. And then we get the train wreck shooting that's linked up to the Batman shooting. I can't remember. Maybe he wasn't fully running for president at that time. I can't remember when he announced his run for presidency, but he was definitely in the news in 2015, and they were calling him a train wreck, and he was talking about running for president if he wasn't already running for president at that time in 2016. So once again, all this links back to Donald Trump. And then you got the Batman shooting that happened 4 months, 24 days before Sandy Hook. Linked up to this lightning symbolism. Even if Kobe wore this mask on Shaq's birthday, and if you go from that day to the Batman shooting, it is 136 days. If you're out the Dark Knight, it equals 136. And once again, Kobe broke his nose 4 months, 24 days before the Batman shooting. So it's all linked up to Kobe Bryant. I mean, that's why we got this helicopter story of the news with Kobe Bryant. The Mar-a-Lago stuff is linked up to the guy who told Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago that his name was 424 like the Hebrew Messiah. And then that guy gets sentenced to jail 4 months, 24 days after his birthday. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Then we get a story about the Western Wall in the news. Of course, the Western Wall is really important to that. Also, the date, 13/8, Donald Trump equals 138, like 13/8. So let me see here. Giuliani. So much stuff going on here. Vince McMahon, too, Vince McMahon, they just can't. There's just a story today about Vince McMahon and how his hush money was linked back to Donald Trump. I swear I saw that somewhere in the news. It was a story of Vince McMahon and his hush money leading back to Donald Trump and when Donald Trump was in the wrestling. Well, you can look it up. I know there was a story on here earlier. It's hard. There's so many stories I'm trying to look, but oh, right here. Probe into Vince McMahon's hush money payments turns into Donald Trump charity donations. And remember that in 2019, Vince McMahon's birthday was really big too. His birthday is 8/24, right? Kobe Bryant's numbers, 8 and 24, Kobe Bryant Day. That was the day Andrew Luck announced his retirement. And it was linked up to all kinds of stuff, but that is also the day that The Rock, right? The Rock's dad died. Or The Rock's dad was born. Let's see if I can find it here. Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Was his father, Rocky Johnson. So his dad was born on Vince McMahon's birthday, but then his dad would die just before Kobe Bryant on Shane McMahon's birthday. And that's interesting because Shane McMahon just so happened to be in a helicopter crash the summer before WrestleMania 34. And WrestleMania 34 was when Ronda Rousey announced that she was or WrestleMania 34 was when Ronda Rousey made her debut match or whatever, right? She came out at the Royal Rumble and pointed out the sign basically stating she was going to wrestle at WrestleMania 34. And the reason that she ever was associated with the WWE had to do with The Rock bringing her into the ring at WrestleMania 31, whatever it was in San Francisco, right? And of course, San Francisco was important to August 11th and the Golden Gate Bridge, and the Golden Gate is where the Jewish Messiah will return through. So it's all, interrelated back to that. August 24th on the Gregorian calendar is even August 11th on the Julian calendar. But, what are the odds? The Rock's father was born on Vince McMahon's birthday, and then he would die just before Kobe Bryant on Shane McMahon's birthday, and Shane McMahon was in a helicopter crash just before WrestleMania 34. And of course, Ronda Rousey's first UFC fight, I think it was. Her first big win. Let me find it here. It was linked up to Kobe Bryant like crazy. Was it UFC 157? Yes, it was UFC 157. Let me look at this really quick. I know I have a blog post on this, but Ronda Rousey was all about the number 34. I've talked about this plenty of times, tons of videos. Maybe I'll find one, leave it in the description. But even in 2015, that's when I started noticing this pattern with Ronda Rousey, number 34, how it linked up to Kobe Bryant, even more so. But UFC 157 just so happened to be the year after the Batman shooting. It was on February 23rd, 2013. So it was 185 days after Kobe Bryant's 34th birthday. And Ronda Jean Rousey equals 185. Also, Donald John Trump equals 185. But UFC 157 was interesting because it was the first ever women's UFC fight as well, right? And think about how Kobe Bryant in Gematria equals 157. And Kobe Bryant died 157 days after his 41st birthday. Syncing up with his name, Kobe Bryant, 41 and 157. It was also the 54th day of the year. If you add out Kobe Bean Bryant, it's 54. And they were fighting at 135 pounds. And if you add out Kobe Bean Bryant, it also equals 135. So, for years, since 2015, I've talked about the number 34 and how it linked up to Kobe Bryant and Ronda Rousey. And then Ronda Rousey's first ever UFC fight and the first women's UFC fight was 157 that's linked up to Kobe and, his 34th birthday and so on. It's just craziness. And also don't forget that in 2019 with that big Tisha B'Av event, SummerSlam just so happened to fall on August 11th, 2019. And it was held in Toronto. And that was just after the Toronto Raptors had won the NBA Finals. And think about it, Kobe Bryant and how Kobe Bryant had his 81-point game against the Toronto Raptors. And when he returned in the 34th week after tearing his Achilles, he played the Toronto Raptors, the same team that he scored 81 points against, right? And further yet, that was also Dwight Howard's birthday, the day that he returned from his Achilles injury. It was on Dwight Howard's birthday. So, I mean, once again, it connected back to Dwight Howard turning 34, and then Kobe dies, just a month later. And, the Toronto Raptors were really interesting because that was also the year that Kevin Durant tore his Achilles in 2019. And I got a weird comment. Hold on, Kevin Durant Achilles. I remember getting a weird comment about Kevin Durant, and it was 34 days before he tore his Achilles. And that's when I started paying attention to the Toronto Raptors a whole lot, because I knew there was something important to how it synced up to Kobe Bryant and whatnot. And then, even talked about DeMarcus Cousins in this post. And then later that summer, DeMarcus Cousins signed with the Los Angeles Lakers. And then he got injured, so they picked up Dwight Howard on Kobe Bryant's birthday. And then I was like, look at this. Dwight Howard's going to be 34 years old this year. This whole season's going to be scripted around Kobe Bryant. It sure was. Kobe Bryant dies in a helicopter crash. So, just once again, the whole point of this is that Kobe Bryant helicopter story in the news right around the time that Mar-a-Lago is being raided and so on. It's linked up, to Batman. They're connected to Donald Trump saying he's Batman in a helicopter. The new Batman movie just came out on 3/4. The Batman shooter's 34 years old right now. It's a pretty interesting number. But I'm going to finish this video really quick. I have to go to a band or a DJ/band gig thing tonight, and I actually started this video a couple days ago, and now it's August 20th at 5:50, but, after I started making this video and been blogging about all these things, yesterday there was a big story in the news about how the Regal Theater is in money trouble. It's like the theater, right? Theater shooting. Also talking about James Bond and Sean Connery, and now today there's a story with Sean Connery's James Bond car being sold. Like, what are the odds? These are like headlines on CNN. Sean Connery's James Bond car being sold. There's a story of this lady who got struck by lightning in Winter Springs, Florida. There's something interesting with that, too, because, like I said, I want to talk more about this lightning symbolism, but I just don't have that much time, but this lady, I was looking up Winter Springs because I was like, interesting. This lady, they don't give you that much details other than it was at Keith Elementary School in Winter Springs. So I looked up Winter Springs, and on Wikipedia it doesn't really list that many notable people from this place. But one of them I see is the rapper Caskey, who I've never heard of until August 6th this year when I was DJing. My friend asked me to play the song Martial Law by Caskey. And I was just like, oh, whatever. So, and I don't know. I played it because we're like almost 40, but he knows all of these like younger kids' music, and it's perfect. He knows a lot of stuff. I don't even really listen to new music anymore, but he told me to play the song. I played it, and I just remember it. And now I'm seeing this guy's from there, so I'm like, what in the world? And I DJ'd on the anniversary, or August 6th, that big day I was watching for that's connected to Batman. And, my friend Sturgill, who told me to play this song, he went to that midnight showing with me of the Batman movie in 2012, and his name equals 86, right? And then all the other 86 with the Batman stuff. So there's got to be something connected to that. I don't quite get it, but, martial law, that's an interesting thing for, And this guy's name, Brandon Caskey, equals 51, like Batman, like Moon. I'm just wondering, too, like, a while back I was talking about August 6th and how it was 8 months and 28 days after my birthday. And that's important to the TV show Manifest and the number Flight 828 and a bunch of stuff I was talking about a while back. So, just trying to figure out this narrative here. But this guy's birthday is 8/28. That's what made me think of that. And also, we just recently had this story of the Ethiopian airline pilots who fell asleep and they missed the runway or whatever. And remember, in 2019, there was the Ethiopian airline crash that crashed in Kenya, and it was linked up to the lion symbolism because Tisha B'Av began on August 10th that year, which was World Lion Day. And, Haile Selassie is the lion of the tribe of Judah. This was linked up to why the Rams were in the Super Bowl and the Ark of the Covenant and Moses. It's connected to the number 34. So what are the odds now we're getting another Ethiopian airline story? It's also why Nipsey Hussle died, right? Nipsey Hussle had the Ethiopian name. And Nipsey Hussle's birthday was the same day Donald Trump said he was Batman in a helicopter at the Iowa State Fair. The same day as Ben Affleck's birthday, and Ben Affleck was then the next Batman, so... And also, yesterday we had this story about the Dirty Dancing hotel that burnt down. The hotel that inspired Dirty Dancing had burnt down. Apparently it burnt down on August 17th, but I did not see the story on CNN until yesterday. And it's interesting because, like I said, I just had this synchronicity with Patrick Swayze. And Patrick Swayze, of course, known a lot for Dirty Dancing, right? So, it's just pretty interesting. And then I also got this comment on one of my old videos from 2014. And what's funny about it is that I talk about Donnie Darko in this old video. And, of course, Donnie Darko has Patrick Swayze in it. And he's the child molester or whatever. He has the child porn stuff, right? And I remember the other day when I had the synchronicity at work with Patrick Swayze, I told my coworkers all about the movie Donnie Darko and how he is like a pedophile in the movie and so on. Because they'd never seen the movie. And there's something interesting there. Donnie, thinking about Donald Trump. You know, this movie's, the setting is in 1988. It's actually October 2nd, which is the day that Donald Trump got coronavirus. Just makes me wonder, but it's set in 88. It's about time travel. Think about time travel and the number 88 and Back to the Future and how Biff Tannen is based off of Donald Trump and Trump equals 88. So it's just interesting. I talked a lot about Skull and Bones. I'll have to go read this website because I was talking about this website and Skull and Bones, and I was trying to figure out more about what the number 322 represented, and that's pretty much what this video was all about. And it's also, I put it out on Back to the Future Day as well, October 21st, right? And so who knows? There's something interesting there. And then this person, White Tyler, you know, just, I don't know, using lowercase and capital letters, interesting, but I only know 2 Freemasons in my entire life. Like, I personally know who they are, and they have the same gematria, and one of them's named Tyler White. So it's just, I don't know, it's just interesting. Doesn't necessarily have to mean anything, but they're both really nice people too, you know. It's not like they're these like evil demon people or whatever, you know. They're just into learning more about the world, so. I also, in that video, I talked about the movie 28 Days Later. Because, you know, the Donnie Darko, that it's involves like 28 days and like, what, 6 hours, something, I can't remember. But that movie, that's like part of the plot. He has that many days or whatever. And then the movie 28 Days Later had came out like a couple years later. And it's just interesting because I see the main character is Cillian Murphy in that movie. And I was just looking into him because he's plays the Scarecrow on The Dark Knight Rises. So, and I thought he was maybe the Sandman because he like has that drug that puts fear in people. And I thought he was like the Sandman dust. Because I hadn't seen the movie in a long time. I don't know that much about superhero movies really. But apparently that guy was called Scarecrow and not called the Sandman. But I remember looking into it and thinking, oh, there must be something important to that guy. And then now I see that he's in 28 Days Later, so maybe there's something important to that guy. Let's look him up really quick. Cillian Murphy. So May 25th, 525. Just could be something important to the Pentaveret, maybe. He's 46, you know. He's from Ireland. Irish Catholic 46. I don't even remember what this movie's about. Is it about a virus or something? Yeah, it is about a virus that kills people. I don't even know if I even watched that movie before, to tell you the truth. Maybe I have. But I feel like there's something here, but I gotta go. Just wanted to hurry up and finish this video so I could actually post it. And just have a lot of stuff going on, so. Just interesting how all these things I'm talking about just keep popping up in the news, you know. You got the Chargers stuff with the Lightning, the Charlottesville attack lady. There was a story about one of the ladies in the news with her, with that, and it's from like 5 years ago, and it was a Dodge Charger, right? And then we got the Derwin James signing a record contract. He's plays for the Los Angeles Chargers. They have the lightning bolts or whatever. That's their symbol. Same day, LeBron James signed a big contract, right? LeBron James. Derwin James. Or however you pronounce the guy's name, but he has the same birthday as Tom Brady. And think about how the Tampa Bay Lightning just lost in the Stanley Cup Finals. LeBron James, Tom Brady, Kobe Bryant, the GOAT stuff, right? Michael Jordan. So, we will see. But yeah, I'm going to just end it there. Have a good one. Peace.